ELI5 wide is the Panama Canal of canal locks, while the Suez Canal doesn't have any. Shark control mainly. Scientists don't want the Atlantic sharks meeting the Pacific sharks. One of two outcomes have been hypothesized. They either fight to the death eradicating one set of sharks and disrupting an entire ocean's food chain, or they breed to create super sharks. The main fauna threat with the Suez Canal is crocodiles. We all know that crocodiles are amphibious, so would just shimmy past any locks that can be engineered by humans. Other crocodile deterrents are used, I believe. People have pointed out the terrain issues, but I encourage you to actually look up the Panama Canal on Google Maps. You'll see that the excavated canal is actually a pretty small part of its length. When you go through the Panama Canal, most of the trip you're actually traveling through a large mountain lake, Gatun Lake. The canals and the locks are mostly just to get you from sea level up to the level of this lake, and then back down. The Panama Canal travels through some very challenging terrain, and so the canal would either need to raise descent in elevation along with the terrain, or otherwise would need to be dug extremely deeply in some locations. They chose the lock method to raise and lower the canal sections as it moved through the elevation changes. The Suez Canal doesn't have these elevation changes and so could be dug at a consistent elevation without difficulty. The locks are used to make a kind of tub and add or remove water to raise or lower the ship to traverse to the next part of the canal. The Panama Canal basically goes over mountainous terrain. They didn't just dig up the whole terrain and make it all sea level, it rises and then drops down again. The boats in the canal need to do the same thing, go up and then down the other side. The Suez Canal has no such difficult terrain. The Panama Canal has to traverse different elevations to make the crossing. The Suez Canal does not. Basically, the path for the Suez they were able to dig all at the same level. But Panama has to cross the mountain, and digging the entire length down to sea level was much more difficult than building locks allowing them to raise and lower the water level in segments. The Panama Canal actually raises ships that are incoming. The ships then navigate through a lake that is elevated higher than both oceans on either side. They then lower the ship to the sea level of the opposite ocean and away they go. So the ships go from salt water, to elevated fresh water, then back down to salt water again. The Suez Canal crosses what is essentially a flat plain. The Panama Canal crosses a mountain range. The people that dug the Suez tried to dig a canal across Panama. They failed. The land where the Panama Canal was dug is above sea level. Instead of digging way down into the ground to bring the land down, they used locks to bring the ocean up to the land. The French design would have been at sea level for Panama. It would have required moving a lot more dirt. Suez goes through pretty flat geography. Panama not so much. Google search for elevation cross-section infographics of the two canals. Easier to visualize than to explain in words. Pretty simple. The Suez is just a big ditch in the desert, while the Panama Canal has to go up and over some hills. The people there are more trustworthy, so they can leave their canals unlocked without worrying they'll get stolen. Suez Canal is flat. The Panama has to go up and down a hill. Locks are for getting ships to go up and down hills. Elevation. With changes in elevation from one side to another, the locks are a gradual step-down system. The Pacific and Atlantic are different levels. The Med and Red Sea are the same level. That's why, at first glance I thought this was a link from our jokes and was looking forward to the punchline. Because the Suez Canal is just a regular canal while the Panama Canal is also a water elevator. The Panama Canal has lakes that were there before the canal was dug which are not at sea level. Suez Canal pretty flat. Panama Canal not at all flat. Hence the locks to help with elevation.